Hey everybody, this is Mark Smith. I'm the host of Digital Roughnecks, and I'm here with Andrew Parker from SPL. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yep. So, Andrew, you have an unusual, kind of a relatively new title in ESG, but you also have an interesting background that fits with that. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I never thought I'd get into oil and gas. I went to school and studied climate change. That was really the focus of my dissertation for 5 years at Texas A&M, and never thought for the life of me I'd end up in oil and gas until I did an internship with Shell. And at Shell, I realized that oil and gas companies are a lot more than just oil and gas. They're really integrated energy companies. And I was really impressed at just the forward thinking nature of a company like Shell and a lot of the other super majors. And it kind of hooked me in getting into the oil and gas realm once I got out of school.
Interesting. So, a climate change guy who thought maybe thought you were going to be an activist on that side ends up going to the operator side. So, for those climate change people who might be watching, is it the dark side or what?
No, I think it's very much counter to that. I for one used to think it was the dark side, but I think for me, one of the reasons I wanted to study climate change and stay in that line of work was because I wanted to feel like I make a difference. And I'm just amazed at what the oil and gas industry does on a day in, day out basis with respect to pushing forward technology and innovation with respect to the environment and just operating and producing the product as cleanly as possible. And so for me, getting up and going to work every day really accomplishes the goal that I set out when I went to school, which is to make a difference for the planet.
So, tell me about what SPL does then.
Yeah, so at SPL, I mean, we're really so much more than our roots were in traditional oil and gas measurement and laboratory, and really now we've blossomed into a full service technology OFS company that really touches kind of end to end the hydrocarbon value chain. So from the wellhead all the way to the downstream refineries, we really do a set of different services, whether it's traditional measurement, laboratory testing. We do a lot of R&D now for customers, and production allocation. We have our own software platforms. We sell software commercially. So it's probably easier to say what don't we do as a company than what do we do.
So, this end-to-end environmental compliance, it's interesting because as we speak, last week, a lot of the super majors were called into Congress and it kind of got beat up on by Congress saying, hey, you're lying and you're not working on this stuff when you know full well you got an entire team who's working on environmental compliance with these guys. Many cases, maybe it's because of a required regulation, but many times it's voluntary, right? They do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, those hearings last week were a tough pill to swallow. I don't want to get on my high horse on that because we probably don't have enough time for the podcast. But yeah, I mean, it really is. It just seems counterproductive to, I think, progress that's being made within the industry. It doesn't take a whole lot to set the narrative backwards when really the narrative should be very positive with respect to the innovation that's being had at this level in the oil and gas industry.
So then, as a climate guy, you're probably following loosely, at least, this whole climate. They call it, what is it, COPs?
COP 26
COP
in
26
Glasgow.
in Glasgow, right? So all these guys, G20 countries, getting together to come up with the next, big ideas of reducing, carbon and equivalents and stuff, including the current boogeyman, methane, right? And yet, you and I both know that if you go after where most people produce electricity today, and with natural gas, what would we go back to? Is certainly you can't resupply that or offset that with solar and wind today. So you'd end up going back to coal, in which case you might be going backwards.
Well, I think a great example of that, Mark, is the fact that just the other week it came out that more states, for the first time in, I think, 20 years, coal is on the rise again, actually, because we're running short on on other alternative energies that are cleaner, like natural gas and oil. We're depleting our reserves. We're nearing a record low at Cushing. And so I think that, I was having this debate with someone the other day about there being a lack of strategic planning for the energy transition. And they kind of challenged me on that. But I think all you have to do is just go to any news website right now and see what's happening in the energy industry and what people are paying for energy prices. And you'll know that there's a problem.
Right. So, Congress is debating an infrastructure bill and yet going after not even allowing infrastructure that they wouldn't even have to pay a dime for, right? Midstream companies, whatever, would just build a pipeline to connect from here to there. And all of a sudden now a whole section of the country could get natural gas and start to wind down coal or whatever.
It's the hard part, I think, about the conversation is that really both sides, I don't think, need to be as far apart as they feel, right? You and I were talking before we started filming this podcast about the upcoming changes to LDAR frequencies, right? And if that happens, in theory, that could be a six times the increase in truck traffic and people going to sites now monthly. It almost becomes counterproductive. You look at pipeline opposition and the moratoriums on drilling, and it just is so counterproductive to what is truly trying to be achieved by the industry with respect to reducing our carbon footprint.
So I think that's where you and I, with CleanConnect and SPL getting together, which we recently did, a strategic partnership, to really interject AI, into the whole equation, which has happened. I mean, AI and technology has had a huge impact in other industries. And we both believe that it's going to have a huge impact in environmental compliance. At CleanConnect, we're already seeing that in terms of not only providing and keeping people future-proofing environmental compliance, but also with operational savings and getting ROI. But yeah, let's talk about that. So if we increase, instead of increasing the resources sixfold, to go from measuring LDAR inspections every 6 months to every month, instead they could do autonomous LDAR or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like every industry, the oil and gas industry is looking to automation for increasing operational efficiencies. And as they're forced to look at their carbon footprint in their operations, obviously a platform like CleanConnect is so attractive because it's not just emissions, it's so much more, right? It's autonomous gate guard, it's PPE detection, it's non-invasive tank monitoring. There's so much more to it that when you start to look at how you can bundle the potential services into one product, you actually start to you turn a cost center into a profit center, right? And it becomes operationally smart to make the jump and start to adapt technology like that at well sites that the economics justify it. And at SPL, we're really excited to be able to partner with you guys at CleanConnect because we feel like ESG is in our bloodline. It's data intensive, and data and analytics are what we do all day, every day. And we're real excited about the synergies that we're going to be able to pursue with the CleanConnect team and really continue to drive innovation in the space.
So, and we're equally excited because you guys are already doing end-to-end, measurements, from upstream to downstream across 1,000 clients, right? So you're already there, or we're just sort of growing into that. And especially with new standards, like what we believe Quad OB is going to be, a 0.2% methane intensity standard, now to be able to offer that to our joint clients, an end-to-end measurement thing of actual, so which they're going to need to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, gone are the days where you're going to be able to calculate your GHG emissions. Very soon, you will be required to have to measure them, right? And so SPL is already on, we have 1,600 customers. We're on over 1,000 well sites per day, and we span the entire hydrocarbon value chain. So when we look at a data intensive process and data gathering like ESG and GHG tracking and methane emissions, ground truthing your methane intensity, we're already there. So for us to do it becomes a lot less of a burden than someone having to do it entirely themselves again. It's eliminating redundancies in the day-to-day operations that we're able to provide people.
And the cool thing about training AI, just as an aside, I mean, think about all the smarts that's baked into your scientists and your labs and all that kind of stuff that eventually it's going to get baked into these, into the AI, so that we're going to be able to really autonomously look at this whole value chain, providing real-time, measurements for people that they can roll that up and give them to their ESG reports or regulatory compliance or whatnot. And that's going to solve a huge problem. In addition, as you mentioned, all the other things to solve, provide huge ROI for the ops guys.
It's such an exciting space, and I think that's what excites me the most about the relationship that SPL and CleanConnect now have going forward. Because there's a lot of, I think, people wondering, just like what you said, right? How do I consume the data? I have a lot of data, but how do I analyze it? How do I get the most out of it? How do I make it work for me rather than trying to work for it? And I think that collaboratively, our team's going to be able to really come up with some pretty ingenious ways of thinking about ESG data and the ways we consume it.
Yep. Okay, so if anybody's interested that's watching this and thinking, wow, I could use a way to automate my end-to-end methane intensity monitoring or autonomous elder or any of those things, we're going to have all the contact information with this video below, and I know they contact you, Andrew, or myself, and we'll work on, now we come in together working on certain projects together. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, we're real excited to be a part of your team and bring the technology to more people going forward.
All right, sounds good. So thanks everybody for tuning into this week's Digital Roughnecks, and we'll have all that contact information below.